What's up, Penn Staters? Welcome to the Football Letter Podcast. This week, we welcome standout volunteer leader Lucille Mankowich. Lucille is a 1990 Penn State graduate, and she serves on the board of our Long Island chapter in New York. The chapter is dedicated to uniting Penn Staters who live in the area, and the Alumni Association has recognized the Long Island chapter as a group of distinction each year from 2017 to 22. Also of note, Lucille has 3 sons, 2 of whom are attending Penn State. So she knows all about the power of the Penn State network. We're going to hear more about Lucille and introduce her to the worldwide Penn State Alumni Network. Lucille, welcome to the Football Letter Podcast. How are you doing today?
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I mentioned at the top, you, in addition to serving on the board of the Long Island area, that's where you grew up. What were your early impressions of Penn State, and how did Penn State become the school for you?
I was on a search to be an athletic trainer as a young student, and that led me to Penn State. Was one of the few colleges, universities on the Northeast that offered athletic training as a academic program. So when my dad and I took the trip up to University Park to see the campus, as we're driving up Route 80 and off Route 80, I see this huge football stadium, and being a big fan of the sport of football, led me right there. And I was met with the athletic training program staff there, as well as academic advisors, and I was sold within moments of being on campus, and that's how I got to Penn State.
So Penn State provided the opportunity that you were looking for to further your education. What did that mean to you to be able to find a school that fit what you were looking for, that you met with the folks and it said to you, this is where I do belong? What was that initial feeling like? Was it relief, excitement? I'm wondering, because that's an impressionable age when you're trying to figure out where to go to college. What did it mean that Penn State did offer what you were looking for?
I always was drawn to a large situation, and I really wanted opportunities to work with various sports teams of high-level athletes. And Penn State, of all the schools that I did apply to, was the one that fit the bill the best. And the fact that the campus and the tradition that Penn State afforded me right from the beginning was something that stood out for me specifically.
So when folks hear student athletic trainer, I think they get a sense of what that entails. But what were you doing as a student athletic trainer? Were you working directly with the athletes, I imagine, and maybe kind of just maybe give us a sense of what that was like, and if there are any interesting stories that have stayed with you over the years?
Sure. So there are a lot of prerequisite courses. Had to enter the college, had to enter then at that time it was considered a concentration. So I took health and phys ed courses leading up to athletic training. And then once I was accepted into the athletic training program, there were only 12 students that were accepted each semester. So there's a total of 5 semesters we spent at that time. It was an undergraduate program. Now it's a graduate program. It has since changed through the NATA nationally, but it was an undergraduate program. So my first semester, I worked in the indoor sports complex, which had housed track and field, housed cheerleading, housed hockey, as well as rugby was through that athletic training room as well. Then my next or subsequent years, I was with the men's basketball program when Bruce Parkhill was the coach. And I traveled with them. We were in the Atlantic 10 at the time. And we also were in the NIT Invitational Tournament at Madison Square Garden. So I traveled with them there as well. And then my final semesters, I did my health and physical education, student teaching, as well. I was the athletic trainer at State College High School for the football teams, and then after that with the wrestling teams at State College High School.
Wow. So you were, I mean, you were in the thick of it. I think that's the first Bruce Parkhill reference we've had on the podcast. I know that producer Vince Lungaro is smiling. I imagine you got to know BA Brian Allen with the program. He was with the Nittany Lions hoops program. What was that like? I mean, I don't want to say what was that like. What was, when you're traveling with the team and you're going to these historic venues, how are you balancing, wow, this is so cool, I'm getting to do this with, I've got responsibilities and I also need to be focused. Again, because that's a delicate balance to find, especially when you're, in a younger age, when you're in college. How did you do that?
Well, I spent a lot of time. It was like being on the team because you need to be there before practices, before games, during games, during practices, and then after games and after practices for any pre things we needed to do to get our athletes primed and ready for competition, and then any follow-ups that we needed to make as far as any rehab was concerned, and just taking care of our athletes in general. So during the school day, I would take my classes and then I would go to practice, stay until the last athlete left. Dan Eck was my certified athletic trainer that I worked with men's basketball. And then we would sometimes go to dinner with the athletes, or I would go back to my apartment. I lived in Penn Tower at the time. And then when we traveled, it was like being on the team. To be honest with you, you get so used to being around the athletes and around the coaches that it's just another day. The hardest thing for me is because I can be such a rah-rah person, is when an athlete makes a great play or a great decision, or the athlete was working towards something, being able to do something on the field or on the court, and then they actually be able to do it. You really can't have a lot of emotion on the side. So I had to really learn how to appreciate and internalize a lot of that, because it is professional and you need to be ready at a moment's notice for any emergent thing that might happen on the field or on the court, and be ready to react to that.
The Long Island chapter, wondering if you can give us, a little bit of an overview of the chapter. How long have you been involved? And what does the chapter focus on in terms of how do you engage alumni in the area?
Sure. So I became involved when my oldest of three sons was starting to look at colleges. He was a sophomore in high school. We actually have pictures of the three of them on campus. And we also attended a few football games. We actually attended the football game when Saquon Barkley scored the touchdown on the first kickoff of the game, and we were in the end zone, and it was such a frenzy and so exciting. That really stuck with my three boys. And so all three of them have actually attended Penn State. I have two that are currently there. My son, Robert, he will be a senior. And then my son, JT, both are in the School of Business, and JT is also in the Sapphire program. As far as the Long Island Alumni Association, it's been a slow burn for me. So I started out getting to know the board members that were board members then, that are still actually board members now. I attended viewing parties and would read a lot of anytime an email came or there was a post on Facebook, Instagram, I was always just seeing what was going on to see how I might fit into the current structure that was there. But since 6 years have passed, I'm now, I host viewing parties myself at, there's one particular venue in Suffolk County called The Bench in Stony Brook. And so we've been hosting there for the last 2 years, and we will plan on doing a few more this year. And we've become involved in raising money for our scholarships. We offer 2 scholarships, as well as I help with the admissions office by attending career fairs and anything that we feel like there's a connection with Penn State. And something that I've taken to heart as of more late is, if you know, next to Old Main, there's a monument, and it is the Michael Murphy. It's named in honor of Michael Murphy for his heroism in Afghanistan and fighting for the United States with the Navy SEALs. And this year, for the first time, we participated in the Run Around the Lake, with over 3,000 runners came to Long Island from all over, including I met Michael's roommates and friends that he had in college at Penn State. And they raised money for various scholarships, including a scholarship to the Navy SEAL, a few scholarships also to Penn State, and then various schools in the area as well. And I've really kind of taken that to heart and hope to expand that connection between Michael Murphy, his patriotism, and what he gave. He gave his life for the United States, and the connection that Penn State has with the Murphy family. And I hope to bring that to our current students and more of our alumni to make them aware of the type of person he is, and that connection with Penn State.
Yeah, so well said, Lucille. I was just kind of taking a moment to take in what you were saying. You're referencing that the Penn State Veterans Plaza. I believe it was a class gift of 2011. Michael Murphy, a 1998 Penn State graduate, I believe, if I have that right, memorialized in downtown State College as part of the mural, Michael Pilato's mural. And so very much, yeah, the word hero gets thrown around a lot nowadays. Michael Murphy, truly a hero. And so, thank you for sharing your connection with him and being able to meet his roommates, Lucille. In terms of the chapter, you mentioned admissions, you mentioned a few other things. Beyond football, we'll get to football, of course, but beyond football, can you maybe dive a little bit more into the admissions part, the career fairs? When you're talking with prospective students, what is your message to them about what Penn State can offer? Because you've known it from both sides, both as a student and now as a parent.
One thing, even when I was looking for schools with my children, was the fact that Penn State offers so many different types of programs, and then not only academic, but also in the social realm. So both of my children, although they're both in the School of Business, my middle son was first in engineering and decided that's not something I want to pursue any further. So he was easily able to make the transition from engineering right into another fantastic opportunity in the Smeal School of Business. So that's something that I do talk to parents and children about, is that not everyone knows exactly what they want to do when they get to college. That's more unusual than it is the norm. So Penn State does offer so many different renowned programming, educational programming for the students to choose from. And I've always encouraged my kids and other kids, just if you're interested in a course, just take it. You never know where it may lead you. It may lead you to a minor. It may lead you to a major. It may lead you just to a special interest that you have, that because of the enormous amounts of clubs and opportunities we have at Penn State, that you can join a club. So, for example, my youngest son was a high school wrestler, a good wrestler, and he decided to focus on his academics when he went to school and did not pursue being wrestling in college, but he did play spike ball in his wrestling room as part of their warm-ups ever since he was younger. And so he brought his spike ball net to campus, East Halls, was playing with someone from his dorm, happened to grab, and they were playing, and someone from the spike ball team came over to them and say, hey, we have a spike ball program here, spike ball club team. Why don't you come down? We're going to be having tryouts at Old Main, during the week, whatever. So he showed up. Unbeknownst to him, there were over 200 kids also trying out for the spike ball club. And he ended up making the team, and then he traveled to college nationals with the team this year. Penn State hosted a regional tournament, and every day part of what he does at home is he trains for spike ball for when the season begins again, and they recruit new athletes at school in the fall.
And so the idea of Penn Staters can get involved with their local chapter. There's not a one size fits all model. We've talked with folks who go to their first meeting, and by the end, they're on the board because somebody asked them to. Other folks go and they just kind of listen, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. And so, I wanted to get your advice. Maybe I'm living in the Long Island area. Maybe I'm in Texas. Maybe I'm in North Carolina. We know Penn Staters are everywhere. What would be your advice to a Penn Stater who wants to get involved with their local chapter, but maybe they're not sure how to get started? They're wondering, what can I get out of it? What's the value in getting connected with your local chapter from your perspective?
The first thing I would recommend is go to the PIAA website, the Penn State Alumni Association website, because there are networking on there that you can easily find the Long Island chapter and who you can communicate with. So our president is Peter Fusen, and so his email's on there. You could certainly email Peter. We are on Facebook. So we have Penn State Alumni Long Island chapter. And then we have also Penn State Moms page, which has over 1,000 members on that. And then we're on Instagram, and we're trying to have to start up a young alumni initiative where we pull in more young alumni. So we definitely need someone that can help us out with TikTok and take video and snippets of our different events that we have, like our send-off picnic that's actually scheduled for this October 4th. And then, not October 4th, I'm sorry, August 4th. And we are planning Penn State Creamery Social for next May or June, just so that any alumni that graduated and come back to Long Island, that they can maybe re-meet up. So if they attended, their send-off picnic actually happened during COVID, where we didn't have a lot of people attending our send-offs for a few years because of that. So these students, we're trying to give them an opportunity to engage. Maybe they've been at Penn State, but they didn't know that over 300 Long Island students attend Penn State and its campuses for 4 years and then come back to Long Island. So we're hoping that we grab some of our young alumni, and this way they can network with each other and perhaps meet up not only at our viewing parties, but even in Patchogue Village and hang out by the water, or come to our social, so that they can start connecting with just new people in general.
So it's game day. I'm in the Long Island area. I walk into the Watch chapter where you and the chapter have gathered. What's the energy like? What are the cheers like? How do you generate that Penn State energy on game day?
Sure. We decorate first. So we'll have balloons, and we'll have giveaways on the table, pins and magnets and different things, pens, maybe some notepads where people can take those things home. We have our pennants are out. And then I usually bring a flag that we can fly our flag in front of the venue, or inside the venue. We'll hang that inside the venue as well, so that people know exactly where to go. But then again, most people that walk into the restaurant, we're looking for people that are part of our party. So because usually we ask them to RSVP, but they don't have to necessarily RSVP. They can just come on in. And if you're wearing a Penn State shirt, you can be sure that I'm going to come up to you, or one of our other members will come up to you and be like, hey, come on, sit. This is our area. We have an area that's roped off. That's just for us. We occasionally allow a few friends of our foe that week to come sit with us as well, just for the fun of it. But we'll sit, and we'll, during the quarters and the halftime, we'll do maybe a raffle or two. And yeah, if the game is going well, we're all cheering wildly. We have our palms that we use, and that's it. It's a fun atmosphere.
I can only imagine the pictures probably don't give the energy or the environment like true justice. Yeah, you've got the shakers that the Blue and White Society distributes on game day. Yeah, Jeremy Omard, just a wonderful volunteer leader in DC. They've actually partnered with the Ohio State chapter of like, who live in Washington, D.C. So we can, we can welcome fans of the opposing teams if that's okay. You are tuned into the Football Letter podcast. We are talking with Lucille Mankowich. She is a board member of the Long Island chapter, talking a lot about the Long Island chapter itself, how they unite Penn Staters on game day and year round. We want to get a little bit to your kind of more of your personal Penn State connection, Lucille. But before we do that, one more question about the chapter in terms of when you look ahead over the next 6 months, 12 months, what are some things that the chapter has planned that you would like Penn Staters to know about? Are you planning new initiatives, or maybe just one or two highlights that, that you're proud of when you look at what the chapter has been able to do?
Personally, I'm trying to create more of an awareness about the Michael Murphy Monument on campus. So we do plan on we're working with the Alumni Association at University Park to have a photo op awareness program where people will go to the monument and take pictures of themselves, or when they're visiting their students, any weekend or any time. This way we post that and we create more of an awareness of the monument and the wonderful things that our military does do for our country, and how we support them in so many different ways. The send-off picnic is something that's coming up. We've had up to 200 people attend in the past, and that's always a great opportunity. We invite guest speakers, current students at Penn State that will come and speak with the families and the new admits, the freshmen coming in, to give them helpful hints about housing and meal plans, traveling back and forth, what weekends, some hints on hotels and where to go to eat. That's a big thing. How they can meet up with us perhaps on homecoming weekend. And this way we could have a meet and greet even during that weekend. And I think that's it for right now.
Yeah, and to what Lucille was saying, I think for some Penn Staters, or maybe for a lot of Penn Staters, when they move to a new area, the way that they first get involved with their chapter is that they go to a football watch party, and then they find out all the other things that the chapter does, like you were saying, Lucille. And so just kind of a PSA or a shout out to our Penn Staters listening or watching. Football is maybe a way that you can get involved with a chapter, but when you go to your local chapter, like Lucille was saying, chances are they're doing a lot of things year round. And so thanks for sharing those examples, Lucille. So, what's the best part about being a Penn State parent, Lucille? I know that you get to stay connected through your role as a board member, as a Penn State mom. What's the best part of that?
For me, if my kids are happy, I'm happy. So they're happy there. They're happy, and there have been times when they weren't so happy. So we would talk them through it, and I would encourage them to, really go someplace different that you've never been on campus before, or go someplace downtown that you've never been before. And every time you step on campus, I already said to them, if you don't feel a sense of pride, then maybe that's not where you should be. Because I know when I was there, I just felt so lucky and so happy to have found a place that I really felt fit the needs of that time. If they don't get that same feeling, I said to them, it's okay to move on someplace different. But in their two cases, they did stay. My oldest son stayed for 2 semesters and said, no, this is not for me. So then he came home. But that's how I always say, if you don't go someplace and feel a sense of pride, a sense of wanting to belong there, then just find someplace different, find someplace else. So my middle son, Robert, he did not look to join a frat initially when he was at Penn State. And then after a year or two, then he said, you know what, maybe let me see, I need something a little bit more out. And then he was able to, find a frat that really suited what he enjoyed and what he likes, and has made some great friends and lifelong friends there. So, but that's not something that he shot right out of the gate doing. it took a little bit of time for him to decide that's what he wanted. So I would encourage the moms and the dads that your kids best. And if it's the right situation, stay with it, go for it. I always encouraged my kids. And then I would always say, well, go someplace different. Go to the Arboretum, go to a hockey game, go to a lacrosse game, go in the hub and just sit there and people watch and smile at people and just try to be engaged. Use the social media that you can there on campus, or if you're a mom, reach out to people on social media. If you reach out, people are there. So if you're looking for a place to connect, it's definitely someplace that has so many different types of people from so many different parts of the country and the world. And just open yourself out, take that deep breath, open yourself up, and go walk around campus. Go someplace different that you've never been before, and hopefully maybe find a friend along the way too.
Lucille Mankowich dropping some top shelf advice, spoken like a mom. And I'm laughing because, yeah, if you're a student, be patient. For as speaking for myself, I would do anything to go back to be in college again. Like, don't be in a rush to try to figure everything out. It's okay to let things come to you a little bit. So yeah, that was great advice, Lucille. Thanks for sharing that. Just a couple of quick hit questions here for you as we start to wrap up. What was your favorite class at Penn State?
I would say biomechanics. It's because biomechanics is how the body works, and I always loved anatomy and physiology, and biomechanics is just taking that to the sport level. And so I would say that was probably my favorite. And that class was offered near Rec Hall in the tower right by the Nittany Lion, in the lab that's there. Yeah, the biomechanics lab.
Yeah, absolutely. Rec Hall, just iconic venue on Penn State. I smile. I instinctively smile when someone says Rec Hall. So
I love
that place. Yeah. We were talking with our volunteer leader in Florida. When he was in school, he bowled at Rec Hall. They still had the bowling lanes at Rec Hall. And so that was, yeah, I've seen pictures. I can only imagine how much fun it was. Favorite campus spot that maybe you haven't touched on yet, if there was just a place that you kind of gravitated toward?
I like the fishbowl in the hub. Yes. The fishbowl in the hub. It's sad to me that it's not there anymore, but I studied there an awful lot. And it was I remember this one particular time that it was super crowded in there. I found a spot, sat myself down with my athletic training textbook. Well, at that time we had textbook, and just dove in. And I was like, wow, this is a really cool place. Just a really cool place. So I really enjoyed the fishbowl at the hub.
I think that's one of the most low-key, understated sort of like favorite spots of students. Like if you say the fishbowl to students who were on campus at a certain time, like they instantly know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So we'll flip it to downtown, say, because so much has changed in downtown. I mean, even just in the last couple of years, downtown State College Friday night, you and your family, you and a couple of friends, if you can get a table anywhere without waiting, are you going someplace that's open now, or are you going to resurrect a place that is no longer with us?
I'm resurrecting the diner, but it's not on. It's on a Thursday night about 1 a.m. after dancing at the Lion's Den. Lion's Den's still there. After dancing at the Lion's Den, and then we would go to Mr. C's as well, which is now the basement spot or the spot, something like that. Yeah. And then to the diner.
Wow. We just spoke with a guest who, like, the Den was their place to go. And so this is like, that's becoming a theme of this year. Lucille, just we'll wrap up here in a minute or two, but again, just want to take a moment to thank you for joining us on the podcast. Thanks for everything that you're doing with the Long Island chapter. We know it's a volunteer position, but there is so much work that goes on behind the scenes. And so before we wrap up here, and we'll ask you another question or two, but just wanted to take a moment and say thank you. And, we appreciate what you're doing for Penn State. When you go to Creamery, are you getting ice cream or a milkshake, and what flavor?
Definitely ice cream. I like to try all different kinds. So I don't have any particular favorite, but I just like the ice cream with nothing on top. So I mean, I love alumni swirl. I'll always tell people to try peachy paterno. And that's really, I don't know. I like to try different times. It depends on what's there. That's what it's great about. There's all different kinds there all the time.
Yeah, you just go up to the counter and go, just give me what, just surprise me. Just give me whatever is popular today. What about tea berry? Because we just had a passionate conversation internally a week or two ago. You're not team tea berry?
I never tried it. I'll have to. That'll be when we drop my kids off at school. Actually, JT will be dropping off at the end of August. That's when I'm going for tea berry.
Okay. Yeah. And JT and Robert, I believe that the two sons that you have that are in college
That is
now
probably
are at Penn
yes.
State, wishing them best or wishing them well. So, Lucille, as we wrap up here, wanted to ask you sort of it's kind of a big question, but you can take it in whatever direction that you want. When you look at the role that Penn State has had in your life as a student, as a volunteer, as a Penn State mom, how has Penn State molded you into the person that you are today?
The one phrase that I love is passing through childhood gate. And I love that in the song. And when I go to the Arboretum, I always pause at childhood gate. And I think that it was just a time that you learned how to grow. So it's really important, I feel, through life that you're always growing and becoming and adjusting to whatever's out there for you. And I think that probably would be, the one thing that it really opened my eyes to allow yourself to grow. And that is so true even in so many years later in different things that I've become involved with, that when you if there's a feeling that you get about something that you want to do or something you want to pursue, that give yourself the opportunity to grow in there and find people that'll help you to flourish, and people that will help you reach your goals. And I think that really stands out to me.
You are tuned into the Football Letter podcast. We just wrapped up our conversation with Lucille Mankowich, Long Island chapter board member, volunteer, Penn State mom, dropping some amazing advice. The chapter is doing so many great things year round. We'll make sure that we'll let all Penn Staters know how they can learn more about you and the chapter. Lucille, appreciate you so much stopping by the podcast. Thank you.
Thank you. For the glory.
What's up, Penn Staters? Thanks for tuning into the Football Letter podcast. This week, we welcome Penn State football letterman Miles Dieffenbach. During his time with the Nittany Lions from 2010 to 14, Miles earned 3 varsity letters, and he was named a team captain for his senior year. In true success with honor fashion, Miles earned academic all Big Ten honors 3 times as he started 27 games for the Nittany Lions along the offensive line at left guard. And especially notable for us at the Alumni Association, during his playing days, Miles received the Ridge Riley Award from the football team. We'll get into that plenty. And he was also kind enough to join us in Madison, Wisconsin at the 2021 pep rally roar tour. That was a fun weekend. We were back with the Penn State football team after COVID, and Miles was there in Madison. Miles commanded the room. And so there is a lot that we're going to get to with Miles. And we are so thrilled to welcome you into the podcast, Miles. How are you doing today, sir? So glad to join you.
I'm doing well. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, Miles, you grew up in Pittsburgh, evident by big Pittsburgh guy, evident by the Steelers jersey behind you. I was just wondering, how did Penn State come onto the scene for you? I believe Tom Bradley recruited you. Just wondering, how did Penn State become the school for you growing up in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I mean, short story, it really wasn't the school for me. My dad was a longtime Pitt tennis coach, so I grew up a huge Pitt Panther fan. And so had no inkling or want to go to Penn State, funny enough. And I had been going through the recruiting process, had visited about 10 schools, and, Penn State, kept buzzing. I didn't want to go visit. And my dad said, funny enough, him being the Pitt coach, forced me. He was like, it's a 2.5 hour drive. We've driven to Notre Dame, Michigan State. What's it hurt to go up there for the day? If you hate it, you go back, you never think of them again. But they really want you to come up. And so what's it hurt to go visit? And so we went and visited, and I fell in love. I don't know if it was the cream or ice cream or what was it, but I really fell in love with that visit, and then visited for a game a few months after that. And then shortly thereafter committed to the Nittany Lions.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about that before. The game that you visited before committing to Penn State, there were 100,000 fans there. What do you remember about that moment? What impact did that have on you, seeing 100,000 fans at a football game?
Yeah, I mean, I just had never experienced anything like it, frankly. I mean, I grew up going to Pitt games, which awesome games, but different atmosphere, different level of fans there. And then going to Steelers games, which are incredible, but you're getting kind of 60 to 65,000. And then, going to a night, whiteout game at Penn State. I don't think there's really many sporting events in the world like it. I mean, I've been to a lot of sporting events. There's really nothing like a Penn State whiteout at night. And I was hooked. I mean, I couldn't even fathom what I saw. I mean, I was stunned. And so it was a really incredible and eye-opening thing to see that kind of fan base and support for a team. It was pretty incredible.
So you maximized your time here at Penn State, obviously successful on the field, off the field, and you did it at a time with a lot going on at the program. That's one way to say it. You played for Joe Paterno, Bill O'Brien, James Franklin. Let's talk about James Franklin. I've heard you talk about kind of the job he did recruiting. Happy Valley might not be the easiest place to get to. What was it like, having James Franklin join the program? What do you remember about him joining the program, and kind of how he was able to, honor the past while also, perhaps establishing a new era?
Yeah, I mean, he, as did O'Brien. I mean, he came into a tough situation, and you especially picture, us as seniors. We had Paterno for 2 years, O'Brien for 2, and then Franklin. Not easy coming in and getting buy-in from a leadership group of a team that's been through what we had been through, right? I mean, it was a crazy 4 years prior to him showing up, and he really came in and revitalized it. And he put, like you said, he put a brand new face on the program in regards to how we're going to recruit, how we're going to, have success with honor, how we're going to be on and off the field, both in the classroom as well as on the field. I think that's something he really, he really respected what Joe had did there in regards to, doing well on the field, but building a life for yourself and your family off the field with the incredible academics that were offered at Penn State. And so he really revitalized the program and has, taken off like a rocket ship. It's been incredible to watch.
Yeah, very much like yourself, James Franklin, growing up in Pennsylvania. A lot has been rightly said about that senior class, the leadership when the sanctions were announced, and a lot of folks, players on the team, some players started to leave. That folks weren't sure what the future of Penn State football would look like. What do you remember about the leadership of that team, and how you were able to band together and not only keep Penn State football together, but continue to thrive moving into the future?
Yeah, I mean, it was the craziest, that kind of 48 hours of when the sanctions got announced, and then, us being able to go and transfer to any team in the country where our scholarship did not count against their 85 scholarships as well. So it was a free option. So like, if I was good or if I wasn't good, it didn't really matter. Like, if any school could offer any of us a scholarship, if we were a scholarship player at Penn State, and it wouldn't count to their scholarship count. So it was a free option. And so every school in the country was providing us offers. And we had heard the sanctions and, no bowl games, scholarship reduction, big fine. I think majority of the team, we were going to leave. I mean, we couldn't believe it. And O'Brien, O'Brien and those seniors, right? I mean, you give them that credit. And frankly, like the seniors, like for them to leave, like they had been through so much and they'd been through a while. So I think they were really set in stone, like no matter what, we're not leaving. But for me, I mean, that was my kind of second year there. And I think O'Brien realized really quickly that, we in essentially 12 hours had a monumental moment on Penn State's hands of like, this team we might not have a season next year. If half the guys leave, like we won't be able to field a roster. And like the season most likely would have had to be canceled. And how do you recover from that? Right. I mean, it's almost like you might not even recover. Picture, like, I mean, the entire, university's sporting program is funded by Penn State. What happens when all the hotels don't have anyone in them? All the restaurants that aren't there on game days, that would have been devastating. And so he and those seniors, in a moment of like 48 hours, they really rallied the troops. In particular, they brought in, 50 to like 75 and kind of the most prominent, Penn State football alumni into the building kind of within 24 hours. And they sat us down over a couple hours and walked through what Penn State meant to them and the ramifications of what happens if we all leave. And it was kind of similar to what I just said of, this program might not exist, and this program in this university might not recover from that. And so it really, I mean, it was a lot of weight to put on, 18, 20-year-old shoulders, but, we rallied together and decided to stay and very thankful for that decision, no doubt.
That decision to stay, what impact did that have on you, not just in your playing career and at Penn State, but really throughout the rest of your life? Or are there lessons that you've learned from that time, or has that experience impacted you in ways that continue to this day?
It has. I mean, strength of your word, right? I mean, the commitment. We and I gave my word to Penn State that we were going to play there and support that university, and we committed to those coaches and to the fans and to the program. And to leave when the program was at its weakest and at kind of its bottom, that's a really tough decision to make. And going through that kind of adversity at that young age, I think is an incredible thing to have happen to you and to my future son and daughter. And I think I'm much better for it, being able to look back and how positive an impact that had on my life, making those tough decisions at that age. Pretty incredible moments.
We talked about James Franklin and Bill O'Brien. Can you talk to us about being recruited by Tom Bradley by Scrap? What are your early memories of him and Joe Paterno and coming to campus and your mind changing to think that this is the place where I want to go?
Yeah, I mean, it was, obviously Joe and Tom were kind of like living legends, like, guys that had really seen it all and had, incredible past history. And so getting to be a part of that and see the rich history of the program and getting to understand that more was really incredible. And one thing that really stuck out, it was like a family there. It was really tight knit amongst the players and the coaches and the fans, like those three. And that was something like I hadn't experienced before. And whether it's like Joe inviting everyone over to his house and my parents and going out to eat with Tom Bradley and spending time with the teammates, it was just a really, really tight knit community. And that was really special. It was something like I was kind of joining into another family, really. It was pretty incredible.
So you've experienced that beyond your playing days as a Penn State alumnus. I mentioned in the intro at the top, you joined the Alumni Association in Madison 2021 to kick off that season for a pep rally. You were at the event. You spoke to the crowd. You commanded the room. I remember that day very vividly. When you were there in the ballroom, kickoff was still a couple hours away, and you were addressing the crowd of Penn Staters, you saw the alumni and the fan support. What was that moment like for you, being able to address them with the 2021 season opener a few hours away?
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool experience. It's always great to get back and spend time with the fans and folks in the organization that I'm still close with. And that was a crazy time. I mean, COVID had just happened. Fans weren't really allowed at the games in the prior season, so I think folks were really itching to get out there. And so it felt great. I mean, to spend time with the fans, get them riled up, they didn't need much to get riled up. I mean, I think folks were pretty jazzed up to get out there and watch the Nittany Lions play. And I just have great memories from we when I was at Penn State, we never lost to Wisconsin. So and my uncle's from Milwaukee, I was going to that game with, and so I have very fond memories of beating Wisconsin, particularly my junior year in 2013, where that was O'Brien's last year, if you remember, and Wisconsin needed to win the game to go to the Rose Bowl, and we couldn't go to a bowl game, so we had nothing to lose. And Zach Swinak, exploded on a big run there to seal the game, and that was really incredible memories. That was my last time in Camp Randall, and so was excited to get back there and spend time with the fans and watch the Nittany Lions pulled out a great win that day as well.
That was, oh man, who could forget that? That was a big win. So all about going to Madison, jump around, and then just kind of squashing the Badgers' hopes that day. Let's stay on this for just another question here, because you brought up what I thought was a good point. And after Penn State won, I mean, James Franklin, you could sense, like, some of the beat writers said that this is a different guy than the year before, because 2020 players and coaches, they couldn't be around their families as much. And it was just, the world had almost stopped for a year. And so this was following year, fans back, huge big time win. What was it like for you being in the stands that day? You talked about the family connection there in Milwaukee after the pep rally, being back at a football stadium, watching Penn State play. What was that moment like for you? And what are you looking at or focusing on when you're watching a game? Because you've got a player's perspective.
Yeah, I mean, it's I mean, the game of football is just such an incredible sport, in my opinion, and it's so fun to watch and be part of. And so I mean, just from a year off of not being able to sit there and be there in the stands and just get back out there and watch the team was exciting enough. I mean, when I'm watching games, I tend to watch the front seven for about the first second and a half, and then I go to the ball. And so that's kind of my typical play-by-play. It's hard to break from being a former offensive lineman. Got to watch the battle up front for at least a second, and then go to the ball. And so that was it was awesome to get out. And Camp Randall's a great place to watch a game, and that's a great stadium to have a first game back out, just given how energized the crowd was both on the home and away side.
Wanted to ask you about the support from alumni and fans. When you were playing at Penn State, you talked about going to the game, before you committed, seeing 100,000 fans. What did the support from alumni and fans, just how much did that resonate with you and help you while you were a student athlete at Penn State?
A ton. I mean, like I said, I mean, I had never really experienced that type of fan base before in my life. I mean, it's unlike any other. How much the fans and the community care about Penn State football, and rightly so. And so it almost felt like you were really playing for something bigger than yourself. And I think that was something really really special to take hold of. And then just like going out there on game day, I mean, 110,000 fans, screaming and cheering for you running out of that tunnel. As like an 18, 19-year-old, it's something you never forget. I mean, you can't describe it. It's a once in a lifetime feeling. I'll never have that experience ever again. And it's just incredible. There's really nothing like it. It's remarkable.
You're tuned into the Football Letter podcast. We are catching up with Penn State letterman Miles Dieffenbach. Miles is talking about his playing days, the support from alumni and fans. He played at Penn State at a time when that senior class and Bill O'Brien and Miles and his teammates kept the program together, and also just staying connected to Penn State. Miles has attended some alumni association events and just have always really enjoyed speaking with you, Miles. You returned to Beaver Stadium in 2018 on Senior Day, I believe, and you were an honorary captain. And you were fired up. I think it was raining that day, and Penn State even scored a touchdown during your interview, I believe. And so you brought some good mojo there. And you were named a team captain your senior year, as we mentioned at the top. That significance of being named a team captain and having that recognition, one, what did that mean to you? And then two, how did that, I don't want to say provide extra motivation, but was that something that was in the back of your mind your senior year then?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the greatest single accolade. I mean, it is. I mean, it's the greatest single accolade I've ever been given in my entire life. Playing on a team at that high level, like so much goes into it, like blood, sweat, tears, hours, work. It's just really hard. And being a team captain, it's something voted on blindly by the team. And so you have so much love and respect for your teammates, and for them to show that towards you and put you in that place where they want you to lead that team in that way. It's the most incredible honor in the world, because you're surrounded by some of the best athletes, people, and friends that you're ever going to have. And for them to think of you in that way and to put that upon you, it's just an incredible honor. I think there's it's really an incredible thing. And speaking to past captains and folks who have been in there, I think everyone feels about the same way. Like, when there's just nothing like the camaraderie being on a college football team together, and for them and those teammates and coaches to give you that ability and put you in that place it's incredible. It's something you remember for the rest of your life. And it is something that gave me, I don't know, we haven't talked about it, but I mean, I tore my ACL going into that senior season. So when I got voted captain, I had just had ACL surgery, and that was tough. I mean, I tore it in spring ball. I wasn't supposed to come back for my senior year. And so when I got voted captain, I said, man, you can sure bet that I'm going to work my butt off to get back for these guys and get on the field. And so that's what I did. I rehabbed as hard as I could and made it back for like the last 4 games of that year. If I wasn't captain, I don't know if I would have pushed it as hard as I would have, frankly.
What was that rehab process? What stood out to you about that rehab process? I mean, you talk about being a team captain and getting back. Just how important was it for you to get back on the field that senior year, knowing that you were a captain, as you just said?
But yeah, I mean, it was my only focus. I mean, that was waking up, every day, thinking, how can I get this knee and my body ready to roll, to get on the field with these guys that I've worked so hard with, and especially those seniors, right? Like, that was we were a really tight knit group of seniors, just given how much we had been through over that time. And like, the thought of just not being out there on senior day with those guys, like, just ate at me. And so for me, I was going to spend as much time, in the rehab facility and getting that knee and leg as strong as I could to get back out there. And so failure really wasn't an option. I mean, I was pushing as hard as I could to get back out on that field.
You've mentioned several times the guys in the locker room, your teammates. I would imagine a lot of the significance of being on a Penn State football team is the guy next to you, the guys in that locker room. How are there teammates that you are still in contact with today? And just how strong is that bond with your teammates? Teammates once, teammates forever, some people have told me. Just how big of a role did the impact have of the individual guys? And are there guys that you still keep in touch with?
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone on a Penn State football team who was once a teammate, you're a teammate for life. Certainly certain guys that are closer to, like, there were, like, I had the same 4 roommates for the entire time I was there. It was myself, Mike Hall, Jesse Della Valle, and Brad Bars. So we're all still very, very close. We're all in each other's weddings, text daily. And then with former offensive linemen, Ty Howe, who's still with the program today, John Urschel, Mike Farrell, and a few other guys we're all still very, very close. And that teammate bond, there's nothing like it. It's hard to experience that, post college football, even at the NFL level. It's not.
You talked about having strong bonds with the teammates, your roommates. You were in each other's weddings. I wanted to follow up on the offensive linemen. You mentioned Ty Howell, John Urschel. What is the bond like with offensive linemen? Because you guys are in the trenches. the running backs get the glory, the quarterbacks get the glory. You guys are the ones who make it happen. Is there an extra layer of personality that comes out when you're talking with an offensive lineman?
Yeah, I mean, offensive linemen are unique creatures. There's no doubt about it. Probably the funniest funniest unit on the team, and so that you get a lot of characters in there. But I think also one thing that's unique about it, football is the ultimate team sport, right? But a lot of the other positions are somewhat independent, right? Whether that's wide receiver or running back, you're thinking about what I have to do in this play. And sure, it's dependent on the rest of your team, but like you in your own position, it's quite independent. Offensive line, like it doesn't matter how well any one of us does. Like all five of us has to be clicking on all cylinders, or the play's not going to work, and we as a unit are not going to function, and we're not going to perform well. And so having that kind of camaraderie where you all have to play as one. You just end up spending a lot of time together. Folks have similar personalities, and it's a tough position. You don't get much glory, and so you kind of bond over the ruggedness of the position, which makes it a lot of fun.
And then going back to the roommates that you said you had the same 4 roommates all through college, just wondering if you could just share their names again, and maybe just the significance that you guys are still in touch, and how often are you guys talking with each other?
Yeah, I mean, it was, Mike Hall, Jesse Della Valle, and Brad Bars, incredible group of guys. Like I said, we're all in each other's weddings. We talk daily. Ton of incredible memories, from playing video games till 3 a.m., till going out after games, to deciding whether or not to transfer from Penn State after the sanctions, right? Like all of us sitting down in our apartment saying, what are we going to do? We've been through a ton together, me and those guys. And so we'll be brothers for life. There's no doubt about it.
Especially close to us here at the Alumni Association, Ridge Riley, the creator and original author of the Football Letter, longtime leader of the Alumni Association. The Penn State football team actually has an award named after him, and it goes to a Penn Stater in the form of scholarship, friendship, really kind of embodying the meaning of a student athlete. Miles, when you were at Penn State and you were successful on the field, off the field, why was it important for you to, one, get the most out of your college experience, and also, give back to the community and recognize that, there's a community supporting you, and also being part of that community?
Yeah, I mean, Penn State's just such an incredible university, and there's so much to offer that the university has to offer us. And frankly, I mean, I knew football wasn't going to last forever, and my mom drilled that into my head at a really early age. So I'm thankful for that. And so knowing that, take advantage of the opportunities that the university provided us was incredible. And that's going to last me for the rest of my life. And then just adding on kind of the Nittany Lion community, kind of largest alumni base, in the U.S. and I think maybe in the world. Making them proud and always kind of including them in the process. I think that's something our organization and our coaches and our team did so well, was getting in front of fans, getting them on the field, bringing them to events, and just embracing that community and the fan base, which is why I think we have such a rabid fan base at Penn State, is it's so involved in the university, and the team does such a great job. And I just love getting in front of fans. I mean, they, getting to make their days and to be with them was always an incredible opportunity.
You mentioned, or you referenced tearing your ACL, overcoming that adversity during your career, not to mention, the sanctions and having that opportunity to transfer and not transferring, deciding to stay. Very happy to share, 6 years ago, you went into cancer remission with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. That was, I believe there was about a 6-month period there when you were diagnosed, and then it went into remission. How has overcoming adversity, how has that played a role in your life? How has that, I don't want to say benefit you, but what have you learned from that adversity? And in what ways were your Penn State teammates, former teammates, and the Penn State community involved in helping you overcome that adversity?
Yeah, I mean, it was a crazy few months, but that's the one thing I say about football is there's no sport that's going to teach you about adversity more than football, just with how how many highs and lows and how physically and mentally and spiritually demanding of a sport it is. And so I was as prepared as ever to go through a battle like that, and going through 2-a-days in the summer heat with both Paterno, O'Brien, and Franklin, which no one had easy summer camps. Physically, I thought, it's probably not going to be harder than those 2-a-days, as crazy as that sounds. So I was ready to roll. And my motto was something that, one of our old strength coaches, I had a motto going through the whole cancer process. And it was something by Craig Fitzgerald, was our strength coach when Coach O'Brien was there. His motto with us was "Burn the ships," which is an old passage by about a Spanish conquistador named Cortez, about him going to fight and overtake an enemy. And when they got under the beaches to overtake that enemy, they burned their own ships, meaning that there was no other option. It was either win or die, right? There's no going back home. There's no safety net. And so we used that at Penn State, and I certainly used that during my cancer process. And I was ready to roll. And the coaches, pretty remarkably, across those three staffs, right, whether that's the Paterno staff, the O'Brien staff, and the Franklin staff, I mean, immediately, all three of them were there for me in person, on the phone, my teammates, in the fan base, like getting letters from folks encouraging me in notes. It was an incredible moment. And so I had folks rallying around me, and the Penn State community was there for me, and I'll never forget it.
Was that something, I think some people notice that, early on, some people will notice it, years after they graduate, that alumni support, that fan support, the support that you talked about from your coaches. I don't want to say the word surprise, but at what point did you realize, yes, I've graduated. Yes, I'm moving on to another part of my life, but my Penn State coaches, my Penn State teammates, Penn State alumni, like they're going to be with me, forever.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely you always have people say it, right? I mean, that that community's there, and they're with you, but to be able to experience it in that way, in such a visceral way, was pretty incredible. Something I'll never forget, and definitely cemented into my brain that Nittany Nation isn't going anywhere, and they're always going to be there to support each other. Something like that really, was an incredible moment for sure.
So you are tuned into the Football Letter podcast. We are talking with Miles Dieffenbach. Miles is talking about Nittany Nation always being there for him and the players, just like Miles and his teammates were there for the university and the community during his playing days. Miles is about to become, well, he's already a father, but he's about to become a father of two, probably by the time we release this episode. So Miles, congrats on that. Just transitioning topics here a little bit. We want to get into kind of your role with Carnegie Mellon. But I was just wondering, after Penn State, how did you evolve your career in terms of, still playing football and then getting involved with Carnegie Mellon? What was that transition like for you, moving away from football? And how did you kind of find your current role that you have now with Carnegie Mellon?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the Penn State network. I mean, so I, my goal my entire life was to play 10 years in the NFL. I had a chance to play with the Steelers, and so signed on as a priority free agent, was hoping to get drafted, and then got cut during, up until preseason, played in about 4 preseason games and got cut. When that finished, I didn't know what I wanted to do thereafter. Frankly, my dad was a tennis coach. My mom was a school teacher. So I didn't know much about business, but thought that I wanted to do something in business or finance. And fortunate enough, Penn State, one thing they do really well is they get you in front of local business leaders wherever you're from. And they'll have senior days where they'll have kind of the seniors on the team, and they'll have local business people or business people from around the area come and get to know folks and give out business cards. And so you can build connections for when football's over, because it's over for everyone. No one's going to play till they're 80. And was fortunate enough that a guy by the name of Jeffrey Ackerman at CBRE, which is a local commercial real estate company, a global company, but locally they're based in Pittsburgh as well, gave me an opportunity to join their team. And that was my first foray into the business world. And I'll forever be thankful for, he was a Penn State alumni and was a huge Penn State fan, and had connected with him when I was in college. So fortunate to just get that starter level role. Was there for about a year and then joined a real estate private equity firm. And so we built big box industrial buildings all throughout the country. And so was a part of our capital team. That was my foray into kind of the private equity part of the world. And then saw the opportunity to join Carnegie Mellon University's endowment. Frankly, I didn't know what an endowment did prior to learning about the role. I knew that my scholarship at Penn State came from the endowment, but it was kind of a black box. Like I didn't understand how they functioned, where the money came from, how or if it was invested. And so reading the job description seemed like an incredible learning opportunity. You know, I would have been joining at that point as kind of the fourth investment team member. We were managing just over $1 billion in assets, and we got to invest that university's capital across the world and across essentially every asset class out there. What is venture capital, real estate, public equities, hedge funds, fixed income, kind of you name it. We get to invest that across the world. And I thought there's no chance I'm going to be able to get that job, but worth applying for it and to see what happens. And thankful enough, I got it and have been there for about 7 years now.
The current managing director of investments, do I have that right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, for Carnegie Mellon. And so Miles grew up in Pittsburgh, Penn State grad, working and living in Pittsburgh. Just really happy for you. We were talking just a little bit before we went on, just new father and just a lot going on. Do you still get back to campus as often as you used to, Miles?
Kids kind of throws a wrench into that thing, especially, having now two kids, soon to be two kids under the age of 2. But, they will be future Nittany Lions, that's for sure. And so we're going to get them back to campus as soon as we can. So I don't know if it's going to be this year, but I think it will be. So we'll hopefully get up there for a game. We usually try and get to one game a year.
All right, we got a couple kind of quick hit questions here for you, Miles. When you do get back on campus, what's one or two campus spots that you try to hit up?
I'd say this is going to be a terrible answer, but a funny one. My favorite restaurant in State College was the Olive Garden. For one main reason, this was pre-NIL days, right? So we didn't have money to spend, and Olive Garden had the all-you-could-eat salad bar, and we would go there and tear that place down. Back when I was a much larger human being, and so I love going to that Olive Garden in State College.
What was your favorite class at Penn State?
Favorite class was positive psychology. That was a class that a lot of the learnings from there I'll take away for the rest of my life. That was an incredible class.
What can you? What's maybe just one lesson from that class that stays with you?
Yeah, I mean, it was really all about the power of positive thinking and how your mind controls, a lot of your physical outcomes, right? Whether that's, being sick or being sad or depressed or you name it. Having an optimistic and positive mindset can control a lot of the outcomes in your life the things that happen in the physical realm. And it was a really cool class. I went into case studies and we went through, projects. It was an incredible class.
Yeah, visualizing success is something that we've talked a lot about with James Franklin and with players and coaches. I know that's become more of an emphasis for coaches and really for all of Penn State athletics in terms of just the power of visualizing success and the importance of mental health. Are there lessons that you learned as a player at Penn State that are going to serve you well as a parent, you think?
Yeah. I mean, where to start? Parenting is a unique battle in and of its own. Hard work. That's one. Parenting is not easy. So that's one. Patience being another one, and kind of putting in the work and knowing that there are rewards on the other side. That's me having kind of soon to be 2 kids under the age of 2, so kind of in the thick of it today. But yeah, I mean, undoubtedly, hard work is probably the number one. I mean, and putting in the work to be the best, father and parent you can to your kids, and the best spouse to my wife for sure.
Downtown State College, Saturday night, you and your family can go anywhere, or you and some of your former roommates, former teammates can go anywhere. No waiting in line. You've got a prime spot. What place in Downtown State College are you going to?
It's a good question. And it's changed a lot since I was there. And even like the places that we would have gone, I'd say still like when we go back and maybe like a bar, we loved the Gaff, the Shandy Gaff. That was always a fun place for us to go to. They had good music choices. We like there. Permanis is always a fun spot to go to. Anywhere to go really downtown is a good spot.
All right, we've got a couple more questions here with Miles Dieffenbach. You're tuned into the Football Letter podcast. Miles, if you were going to address this year's football team at the start of fall camp, what are one or two pieces of advice that you would impart on them from your days as a player?
Yeah, I mean, Coach Franklin does such a good job of keeping, folks focused on what's right in front of them, kind of taking it one day, 1 week at a time. But telling just folks to enjoy it, man. As someone who was there, and will never get to experience and live that again, like being on that team and that camaraderie and being able to play at that level is something. It's just so rare. And so telling folks just enjoy it, right? Enjoy it, work hard, and embrace your teammates and your coaches, and just get after it and have fun. Those would be my big takeaways.
All right, we'll wrap up, Miles, with you on this one. I'm going to ask you to finish this sentence. In 5 years, Miles Dieffenbach will be doing blank, or will be blank.
In 5 years, Miles Dieffenbach will continue to be making fabulous investments for Carnegie Mellon University, so that future students and future faculty members will get to benefit from those investments via better scholarships, better buildings, and better research programs.
Spoken like someone with a mother and a father who are educators, longtime educators, knows the importance of education, 3-time academic, all Big Ten honoree, Miles Dieffenbach. Miles, this was such a treat. When you get back on campus, please let us know. You're always welcome at the Alumni Center. Would love to buy a milkshake or lunch downtown or whatever you're in the mood for that day. So really appreciate your time, Miles, and thanks for everything you do.
Awesome. Thanks, John. This has been a blast.